Imagine growing your business and working less. Sounds not that reasonable? Well, not for today's guest. Jeremy Shapiro has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs break free from the grind, scaling their businesses to new heights through mastermind and expert coaching. With over 2 decades of experience and features in outlets like NPR and Fox News, Jeremy has mastered the art of turning solopreneurs into thriving business owners. If you're ready to unlock your business hidden potential and finally get the freedom you deserve, this episode is for you. I'm your host, Ash, and this is a show where I interview proven founders and industry experts who share their stories, strategies, and insights to help you build, launch, and grow your business. So I hope you enjoy the show. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Great. Do you have a favorite coach, something that inspires or motivates you would like to share with our audience?
Ooh, a favorite quote. Well, in the world of masterminds, a lot of that goes back to Napoleon Hill. And one of the things he always said about masterminds that I love is that
Mhm.
no two minds ever come together without thereby creating a third invisible, intangible force, which may be likened to a third mind. And I always think about that, when I'm getting together, even with just one other person or in a mastermind setting, that the group of us together is so much more powerful than any of us individually on our own.
Wow, that's a different one. I've never heard this one before, but yeah, it gives the meat to my mind to think about it, right?
Yeah.
Two minds come together. Great. So tell us about Mastermind. What does the service or product do, and who's it for, and what's the main problem you're helping to solve?
Yeah. So the concept of a mastermind has been around for quite a long time. And really, it came to more the public eye, as it were, in the 30s
Mm,
when Napoleon Hill published his seminal work, most folks know him by Think and Grow Rich. Chapter 10 in there is called The Power of the Mastermind. And that's really where we're
mm,
introduced to this concept or this idea that if you surround yourself with like minded individuals on a similar path as you are, you can help each other to grow. And so, sort of the modern day version of that and how we do things at the Bay Area Mastermind is we get entrepreneurs together once a month for a full day of working on the business, which is very different than the work we do inside the business. And when you
mm,
have a boardroom of like-minded individuals who are growth focused, you're able to be there to support each other, to celebrate successes, help each other through challenges, ask the tough questions, provide that valuable feedback, and get the insight you need. And so, with that environment, we see business owners pivot, launch new businesses, get unstuck, get the ideas they need to add new channels, sales channels within their business, and so on. And the growth is just phenomenal, both personally and professionally, for folks who are willing
mm.
to take that time to get behind closed doors and truly mastermind.
Interesting, because you're spot on this part that when founders or entrepreneurs they're running their business, they're always thinking about how to run the business from the inside. It's very rare that they're sitting, and that's why it's very famous in at least in London, where we have a small mini Silicon Valley here called Shoreditch, where all those founders come together and meet, right? And they have this famous thing, business on beer. Like you drink a beer with other founder
Yeah.
and don't not talk about like what you do in the business, but what is the business. You know what I mean? Like, so this is interesting. So let's say, um, because you help a lot of solo founders, right? What are the challenges these solo founders have, or what are the challenges you primarily come across when you're signing up a new customer or signing up a new client?
Yeah, it's interesting. So historically, for the Bay Area Mastermind, we were always working with established post-revenue businesses that had a team, revenue, sales process, everything in place, and we're growing, but we're getting to sort of that stuck point, which is very
Mm,
different than your early stage founders who have an idea, right? Or are very early, in that launch process. And so since then, we've actually launched our founders group as well, because these are two very different audiences. What we
mm,
found is, our mastermind members aren't asking, how do I? They're more sharing what they're doing. and the challenges they're running into. Whereas our earlier stage founders are more often asking, how do I do things, or what do I do? And so those are two wonderful pools, but they're definitely different. So what we find at the point someone is finding the Bay Area mastermind and they're looking to join a mastermind group, they're usually stuck somewhere, right? They're seeing a plateau and they want to continue that growth. And so what they come into the room with are two things, right? One is their area of expertise. I call it like their superpower, the thing you're really good at that other people wonder why it's so easy for you, yet difficult for them, right? So you might be amazing at lead generation, or you're a systems person, or you're fantastic at hiring, or whatever it is for your business, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has their own area of genius. These are the things that you know that you know.
Yeah.
But the reason they found us is for that second thing, right? There's something that's blocking you and you're feeling stuck, right? So there's something you don't know. But when you don't know something, you can look for an answer. You can search online. You can talk to a mentor or a coach. You can ask friends. You can find a book. You can take a course, right? You can get answers when you have questions. And so people come into the room with their big question that's keeping them up at night. But the real opportunity, the big pivots, Ash, that I see again and again, actually come from that third huge category in that pie chart of knowledge. And that's the things you don't know that you don't know. So how do you get exposure and influence and inspiration from the things you don't know that you don't know because you can't seek them out? Well, you surround yourself with like-minded individuals. And so in a mastermind setting, we have hot seats for each person in the room where we get to really dive deep into what's going on with you and your business. And we cover four main areas. One is the accountability, or what's been going on over the past month. Two is what's working. Three is what's not working. And four is where you need help. And what I think is so fascinating is when you look around the room, when you see the most notes being taken down, the pen scribbling, when you see that aha moment, that smile creep across the face, those moments are not during someone's own hot seat, but actually during everybody else's session, because that's where you're getting exposed to these ideas and these challenges and these solutions by what's going on in everybody else's business. And so that's where those aha moments come from, those new product ideas, those new businesses, those big pivots, those new business models, all come from hearing what everyone else is doing in their business, where they're getting stuck and where they're seeing big success.
Got it. So you actually pull them out of their comfort zone, essentially.
Oh my gosh. You and I both know the biggest growth moments come from being outside of that comfort zone. And when you're in a mastermind room, that's where people are going to lovingly challenge you, where your employees and your team and your family and friends and others won't challenge you. You'll find folks who've been there, who've done that, and who are okay asking you a tough question or challenging an assumption you might have.
Got it. And when you say that you're surrounded by mastermind, is this a setting of one client of yours, or maybe like the leadership of your client business, and then you guys like the mastermind organization, or is it something like there are multiple clients of yours and then you're facilitating them to go through their challenges? How does it work?
So it's the latter, right? We curate the right group of folks in the room who are at roughly the same stage, in their business, and are seeing success, albeit in different ways, right?
Okay.
And what's nice about that is you'll have businesses, for example, that have their own unique sales pipelines and marketing strategies and all that are working for them, right? So when we talk about being stuck or looking for growth in your business, sometimes those ideas for inspiration come from outside your business. So for example, you'll have an e-commerce business sitting across the table from a retail store operation, right? Both have new leads coming in that are turning into customers and so on. But the e-commerce company is using email marketing, right? And they're using online PPC, and they're seeing success. And they know when they send an email out, money comes in, and they track things like their click-through rates and their earnings per click and so on. The retail store is using direct mail, right? They're seeing success. They're looking at how do they buy lists? What kind of pieces do they mail out? What list brokers do they use? What designers do they use? What mail houses do they use? And so these businesses sharing what's working means that the others are getting ideas for how to differentiate from their industry. So over the next month between meetings, suddenly the e-commerce business uses the same vendors that retail store was using and starts buying lists, designing pieces that go out in the mail and sending them out through a mail house. And the e-commerce business is getting brand new customers that they would never have found online through direct mail. And
Mm,
the retail store is suddenly using email marketing, using the same platforms the e-commerce company was using. And they're now having that same joy and that same results that comes from sending out an email and having new revenue come in. And
mm.
that's not because these businesses weren't successful, but it's because they're using the strategies that the other businesses were using, and they were sharing those best practices behind those closed doors of the mastermind so that other businesses could then use them in their own business as well.
Got it. Got it. That's a brilliant idea because
Powerful.
I see a lot of people. Oh my God. I mean, this opens quite a lot of door because, I have interviewed solopreneurs who have created these SaaS product for B2B. I've interviewed solopreneurs who created this SaaS product for a dating company. I've interviewed e-com entrepreneurs, Amazon, coaches, everyone. Imagine if all these people are utilizing the resources, which let's say A has created resource number 1, 2, 3, and B has created resource number 4, 5, 6, and then they're cross utilizing it.
So I call it cross-pollination, right? You think about bees, right, and moving between the different flowers and all, right, and how you combine, different plants, right? So when you have businesses, we get cross-pollination between business types, between industries, between business models. So we've seen, for example, doctors and physicians, pretty established industry where everyone does things more or less the same way, hear from SaaS companies and subscription-based companies about how they operate. And they put subscription-based programs in place in their businesses. And so suddenly you have very well-established industries with standard practices adding on entirely new revenue streams to the business, right? Now a law firm has a recurring revenue component within the business. That's huge, right? You have a medical practice that is taking care of their brick and mortar patients at their medical practice, but also adding in revenue streams recurring from patients. So it's tremendous as we see this cross-pollination across business models and even business types.
Yeah, yeah. And that is super cool. And what is the process? So you said that, okay, let's say if there are 5 different clients come to you and you register them for this mastermind workshop. Does it last for a day or a week? And then what is the process you take them through from getting to you as a customer and then getting out of the mastermind workshop having so much enlightenment with all these ideas?
Yeah, so our process is a pretty linear funnel. I'm a huge fan of funnels because they're clear and we can understand them, right? So for us, the way our funnel works is folks who are interested in seeing what a mastermind is all about simply head over to bayareamastermind.com where they find out about what we do and then submit an application, right? Once that mastermind application is in, we can see if you're qualified or not. And even just the questions in that application are generally pretty eye-opening in terms of recognizing what some of the opportunities might be in your business and making it clear who we're looking for and not looking for within our group, right? We then hop on a call and go through that application where we ask additional questions and clarify some of the things you submitted and answer any questions you have about a mastermind. If everything looks good, only then do we extend an invitation to invest in a one-day mastermind with us, right? That's your chance to really experience a mastermind firsthand and for the group to see what you're like in a mastermind setting. Afterwards, we then debrief and go over if the group's a good fit for you in your eyes. And we also ask the mastermind group, do we think this prospective member will be a good fit for the group? If we have that true two-way fit, then we extend the offer to become a member in the mastermind and join us, month after month going forward. The continuity that our members, have by coming to the meetings allows you to have that accountability that entrepreneurs so rarely have, right? As an entrepreneur, who holds you accountable? If you want to do something that's not a good choice, most folks don't stop you. If you don't want to do the important work you need to do, there's no one there to hold you accountable to get it done. So when you have a mastermind group that you attend regularly, you're able to have that social and peer accountability, that peer advisory, and folks who really know you and your business and can call you on your BS, help you to get unstuck, and help you to move forward personally and professionally.
Got it, got it. And what sort of, and I know Bay Area is super expensive to live and survive too. What kind of business model or revenue model you're using right now with the mastermind class?
Yeah, so our members pay either annually or monthly to be part of the group. Monthly, obviously, with a longer term commitment, because there's
Hmm.
value for our members to have consistency in who's there in the room, because these
Yeah.
are folks who really get to know you and your business. And there's a lot of value in that.
Mm, cool. That's really, really good because I run my own software as a service platform called Art Circles. And Art Circles is primarily for people to create the community and then potentially charge them for being a part of the community, which is
Mhm.
almost a similar model which you guys are doing in Mastermind. Now, what kind of value or there's a, I don't know if you follow Alex Hermosi, or because he always talks about delivering value as early as possible to your
Yes.
customer, because that triggers that emotion of being respected and gaining value. How do you make sure that your members get the value as early as possible, but also making sure that they continue with you? Because that
Yeah.
is a golden nugget for me, because that's the advice I want to give to all the administrators or host on my platform.
Yeah. So I'm a huge believer in MVPs. It's something that we talk about a lot, right? And an
Mhm.
important part in a minimum viable product is that you're delivering value as early on as possible, right?
Mm,
So when we, taking that mindset or framework to your question, right?
mm,
When we have folks who submit the application, like I mentioned, even just submitting that no obligation application for the mastermind, the
mm,
questions in there can be eye-opening and indicative of what would make for a good member. So there's value there. When we
mm,
hop on a call and go over the application, it's almost a discovery or strategy call where we're talking about where you're trying to go in your business, what some of the opportunities might be. So even just from the application review call, folks walk away with ideas on what they can do to get unstuck and move forward in their business. So there's
mm.
value there before they've even invested anything beyond submitting the application and hopping on a call. But once you're actually in the room for the mastermind day with us, my goodness, I love to always say, like, worst case, you meet some really great people on a similar journey as you're on. You get
Mhm,
some, great ideas for your business and you get answers to your biggest question. In best case, you find the family that you've been looking for all along, who
mhm,
gets you, who understands this entrepreneurial journey and what it's like to do what you do, right? And you find that long-term community. And
mhm,
so from there, you found your people. Outside our actual mastermind meetings, we actually have quite a lot going on between meetings as well. We have, a private Slack community, an email list. We have an online members vault with a ton of resources for our members. So folks come in with an idea of the one question they want an answer for. What they
mhm.
leave with is pages of, aha moments and ideas and accountability that we then circle back with to make sure they're actually executing on the things that will move their business forward. And that's happening not just once a month at the meetings, but between the meetings as well. So
Got it.
that value is being delivered upon from the very first moment and then
Mhm.
consistently forward through membership as well.
Perfect. Wow. That is good. And imagine if we transfer all that into a automated system or a platform which triggers you to do that with your members, right? That's like,
Yeah.
oh, have you done this? Yes. Have you invited your members? Yes. Have you made sure that they're happy? Have you had a call with them? Or when are you doing this next meetup or event? Are you prepared for this and this exercise? Gamification,
Yeah.
all these kind of things, you know?
I love Ash. Earlier on, you used the term golden nugget, and we use that too. In fact, part of our slide deck we have that we go through at every mastermind meeting has a slide with a big old gold nugget on it. And the title of the
Mhm,
slide and the only words on it are golden nuggets, right? So
mhm,
the idea for our listeners, if you're not familiar with that, is, um, when you are reading a book or you're going to a conference or you're attending an event or whatever, right? Not every second and every word out of everyone's mouth is going to be life changing. And it doesn't need to be, right?
mhm.
If you get one golden nugget, your whole investment of time was worth it, right?
Yeah.
So when you're reading a book, it's okay if a chapter is not captivating or eye opening, or if you already know some of that stuff, right? We're looking for just that one golden nugget. So I mention this because there was an event that I was at. I've been parts of mastermind groups myself for decades, right?
Mm,
Some of these groups, you write a 5 to 6 figure check every single year just to stay in the group, right? And you better expect a pretty high ROI from investing that much time and money in being part of those groups. And
Yeah.
so there was a group I was at where after each hot seat, you actually had a form you filled out. And everyone took a few minutes of quiet time to fill out and write in what was your $250,000 idea
Mm.
you got from that one speaker. And so you were then activating your reticular activating system and looking for what is that golden nugget that could dramatically increase my business from this one speaker's presentation. And so at the end of the event, you had a whole page of $250,000 ideas. And so if
Yeah.
you only implemented one of those, what would that do for you? What if you implemented 2, 3, 4, and so on? So we use a similar concept at the Bay Area Mastermind. After everyone's hot seat, we go around asking, hey, what was your gold nugget from this person's hot seat? Right? And maybe you've got 3 of them. Maybe it's 1, right? And maybe worst case, you didn't get any big aha moments from that one person's hot seat, and that's okay. Because by the end of the day, if you only have one big golden nugget, the day is a win. But really what our members get is a page full of golden nuggets and brilliant ideas that they can then implement in their businesses.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And talking about golden nugget, you've worked with many entrepreneurs. What's the most innovative scale strategy you have seen in your recent, mastermind classes? If you don't mind sharing that.
Broadly or specific to a certain area of business?
If it is specific, then it would be more relevant, I guess, because then more it's more specific to that, and then potentially you can unhook it from that specific niche, and then potentially generally explain that idea. Why did you find it so innovative?
So this might be a little meta, so bear with me here, right? When we're in business or we're doing our thing, right, we generally look for how can we do the same thing better, right? We look to make incremental improvements, and that's good, right? We are huge fans of incremental improvement, testing things, A/B testing, and so on. So always be looking to improve, yes. But if you're only looking to incrementally improve the same thing you're already doing, that often puts up blinders, right? So, I'll share with you a story. I was out for a run the other day with a friend of mine, and we're running along. And as we're getting towards the end of this longer run, he looks over at me and points out, he's like, hey, your core is collapsing. I have no idea what that means, right? I'm like, well, what are you talking about, right? I'm looking at myself, and you can't really see yourself from yourself. And he explains to me, he's like, no, activate your glutes more, change this. So I sort of, I stand up a little taller, lean a little more forward, and I'm adjusting what I think he's talking about. But there he is, a second set of eyes, my buddy who I'm running with, able to provide that quick correction and get me back in the right form to finish up that run with good form. Now, I didn't feel I was doing anything different. And then when he told me what to do, I thought I corrected it, but I hadn't. And so that kind of perspective from outside what we can't see, outside our blinders, is so valuable. But how do you get that feedback or input on what you're doing well or what the opportunities are for you in your business? Well, you need that peer advisor. You need others around you who have that perspective, and ideally differing perspectives. And so, bring that full circle to your question. The strategy I've seen so powerful for taking those blinders off is surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals with diverse experiences who want nothing but the best for you, who can celebrate your successes and help you through your challenges, right? So when you're in a mastermind setting, you get that. When you're sharing what's going on in your business that's working well and what's going on in your business that's not working well, you get a range of input. And you might even find people with different perspectives, none of which were the perspective that you had on yourself already. And so you can then internalize that, debate that, talk it out, and find a direction forward and see the opportunities you had no idea were there or the blind spots you didn't even know existed. Because how do you find out what you don't know? You don't know. You have others point that out to you.
Got it. That's so interesting. And Jeremy, you've been helping founders for over 20 years now. What's the most common mistake they make when trying to scale? I really, really want to know that, because I have heard so many people saying, "Oh, I invested that much money on this marketing funnel, but crickets, nothing happened." Or I hired this guy who came to our office and then he drew everything on the board, and next day everything back on this square one. So what kind of big mistakes you see when people come to your mastermind classes, and one of the biggest which you think is more relevant?
Yeah. So as much as our listeners might not want to hear this,
Mm,
oftentimes the biggest blocks are really in mindset, right?
mm,
These are internally beliefs we have that we've never thought to challenge, right? So from a scaling standpoint, I'll share just two of these with you, right?
mm,
One is this mindset that you have to do everything, right? And no one can do things as well as you can, right? When you believe you've got to do it all, that prevents you from creating a system because you believe no one can do it like you can. And that prevents you from hiring team members who can then execute that system. And getting unstuck in our business and detaching ourselves from the business in a good way comes
mm,
down to the right processes and the right people to use those processes, right? So let's get over the fact that others can't do things as well as you can, because there are
mm.
people out there, the ones you should hire, who can actually do what you do better than you can, right?
Yeah.
So hire people better than you to
Mm,
execute the systems in your business and bring their expertise to the table, right? So that's one, right? If you don't do that, by the way, you end up working 90-hour weeks and working 8 days a week, and it quickly leads to burnout, frustration, and you really just end up attached to your business with all the worst parts of a job and the worst parts of a business. So you owe it to yourself to free yourself from that.
yeah. Mm,
Create the systems and hire the people. The second mindset block that we see um, is this, this hustle mentality. This idea that if you're not working those 8 days a week, your competition is out there and they're going to take your customers and take your clients, and you've got to give 184% to your business.
mm,
Again, this leads to burnout, right? Why did you get into business in the first place?
mm.
Probably not because you wanted to just work endlessly and not see your family and not be part of your community and not take care of the kids and not take care of your health and wealth and all that. You probably got into your business because you're looking for what we call entrepreneurial freedom, right?
Mm,
So you owe it to yourself again to time box the time you put in your business. Create those systems and bring those people on board to run that business. Because when we step back, and if you hire people to do all the things that you do in your business, and then the money you make is from the profitability in the business, you might not like how your financials look, right?
mm.
A lot of business owners, especially earlier stage, all the income they're receiving from their business wouldn't support someone else doing the work they do, which means you don't have a business, you have a glorified job and you're being underpaid, right? So free yourself from that, compensate yourself for the job you're doing in the business as well as the profitability you get as a business owner, and move towards your compensation being only from the profitability in the business.
Got it. Got it. Perfect. That's so real advice, Jeremy. I'm really enjoying it. So before we move to towards the reiteration of what we have talked about, I want to ask you something. You're what's one surprising opportunity for growth that most small businesses owner tend to overlook? I mean, you must have come across tons of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of this comes down to seeing what others are doing outside your industry. We all have trade industries for whatever our business model is, right? You've got a SaaS platform. You can go meet other SaaS companies and hear what they're doing and do more of the same. Great,
Mm,
right? Doctors can hang out with doctors. Financial advisors can hang out with financial advisors. We have those communities for our industry. But the real pivots, the real growth happens when you go behind the scenes and look at the real numbers and the real strategies that other businesses are doing outside your industry. So
mm,
when I look at the new businesses that get launched from our mastermind groups, when I look at the new sales channels, the new products that get launched and so on, all of that comes from people leveraging ideas they hear that others are doing in their business and seeing all the shortcuts and taking almost cookie cutter the plan that someone else is using and applying it within their industry. So seek those out. But those kinds of conversations don't happen at the water cooler, right? Those kinds of conversations don't happen one-on-one when you take a friend out for coffee to talk about what's going on in their business. These are
yeah.
the real behind the doors, closed door conversations that you have with other business owners who are sharing really what's working and what's not and where they're seeing success, because they know it's a safe environment to do so. So
Mm,
intentionally surround yourself with the folks who can share what it is they're doing, and you can duplicate that success really easily when someone shows you the true blueprint of what they're doing.
Got it. Got it. That's really good. Great. So let's get into the scribbling part of the interview. Let me quickly.
Love
it. Great. So you mentioned that
I have behind me, Ash, on my bookshelf here,
Yeah.
a few books on doodles and just
Uh-huh.
how valuable it is to take notes in this way. So I love that you're doing that. That's fantastic.
Perfect. Perfect. Great stuff. So you have a sad founder coming to Mastermind asking for like help, and then the first thing you mentioned is, okay, what is your superpower, right? And then the founder says, "Oh, my superpower is my product expertise. I love it. I've been in the industry for so many years, and I know what people are looking for." And then you put this founder with these super mastermind people, and let's iterate through all these four things you asked again. So, what was the first one?
In terms of what they're sharing.
Yeah. So you remember you mentioned there are four things you always ask them
Yeah.
before
So
they.
we go over accountability, like what's happened over the past month that you said you get done. So accountability is huge.
Mhm.
What's working well. So this is where you might be sharing a marketing campaign you ran that was really, really successful, a new product you launched and how great that went and so on.
Yeah.
Yep. What's not working. So you might share you had a hiring process and it didn't work well. You might share a failed product launch. You might share a vendor you worked with and how terribly wrong that went, right?
Mhm.
Everyone gets to learn from those mistakes.
Mhm.
And then that last one you have right there is where you need help. So this is really your big ask. You're asking your question for where you feel stuck.
Right. Perfect. And this way, the founder has a clear visibility of four primary elements of growth which he is required. Now, obviously, I'm guessing this that your emphasis is on this part, which is the help part, because that's why the founder is here, isn't it?
Well, it's funny. When people test drive a mastermind with us and try it out for the day, that's where they think they're going to get the most value. They feel when they come into the room, if they get an answer to that question, it's an amazing day. The reality is the big value comes from everybody else sharing those other three areas. That's where the real value is.
Got it. And that's why I got you another doodle here.
Love it. Look at that bee. I love it.
Yeah. So basically, multiple founders here with their flowers, and then obviously there's a bee. I am considering this bee as you here because you help them, right, to bring resources. So could you again explain to our listeners about this cross pollination theory you came up with?
Yeah. So when I talk about, what I call this cross-pollination of ideas, it's when others are openly and candidly sharing what's really going on in their business, we can learn from that. As an entrepreneur, it's lonely at the top. Who do you really share your biggest successes and wins with, or your biggest challenges and failures, right? It's rarely your family, your friends, right? You're not your employees, not your vendors. So who can you talk to about this stuff? It ends up just getting all jammed up in your own mind, right? So when you have a safe place to share this, others can celebrate those successes and wins and learn from them. And others can help you through those challenges that you're facing as well and learn from them. So if you remember that board game, I think you have a different name for it. It has different names, but we call it Chutes and Ladders, right? There's sort of this game board you can move forward on, and occasionally you find a ladder that gets you really far ahead on the board. Or you end up
Snakes
with a
and ladders. Yeah,
yes,
snakes and
exactly.
ladders. Yeah.
Same thing. Yeah. And other times you hit, one of these snakes or slides and you end up going backwards, right? So if we can intentionally find out where these ladders are and where the shortcuts are, we can jump forward in this game of business, right? And we can intentionally avoid some of those snakes and slides that would slide us backwards, right? So when others share and show us the blueprint and the roadmap for them, we can learn so much from that. I think it's like having, a virtual laboratory where these other scientists are out there experimenting in their business, doing things and reporting back on their findings with their research papers, right? And you get to comb through that and see the highlights and apply all those best practices right away in your own business without
mm.
having to learn things laboriously the hard way again and again and again.
Got it. Got it. And going back to our previous doodle here, you mentioned that when these founders, when they discuss this with other founders, have you came across in a situation where there are founders who share that what they're doing in their business, and they say, oh, please don't use it because this is my thing, my copyright thing. Did you come across something like that before? Or
Yeah, so it's important to us that when people are joining us, behind the closed doors of the mastermind, there's confidentiality. Everyone agrees to confidentiality, that what stays in the room stays in the
Mhm,
room, right? Um, so yes, right. There is sometimes a concern around that, but everyone, this is built on trust, right?
mm,
So we've never seen someone just go and launch a competing business, right? Generally, again, everyone's seeing success doing their own thing, and to just copy what someone does to compete against them doesn't make sense.
mm,
What does make sense is taking the best practices and applying those in your own business. We've even had people, it's unusual, but we've even had people in like the exact same industry with similar kind of customer base,
mm,
but it's not viewed competitively. It's viewed collaboratively, that
mm,
you can now take what someone else is even doing in your industry that's different and apply those best practices. You're still not competing head to head with them. You're just both learning from what you've done in, your respective businesses.
mm. Got it. And it is crucial because sometimes some strategies are very relevant to one particular type of business. It might be relevant but not be successful if they implement it. But other way around, if you have like two same kind of businesses working on the same kind of revenue or business model, and then one knows the strategies and other doesn't, and then if they share it, there might not be a um, um, a disadvantage for the person who is already using that strategy, but there might be a big advantage for the person who is not using these strategies, and that way they can
Yeah.
get beneficial.
We've also sometimes seen, this is not in the mastermind room, but just more generally, you'll sometimes get copycat businesses that come up that try and copy what they see on the outside of a business, right?
Mm,
So they see the outward success of a different platform. You see this in SaaS all the time, right? Someone else tries to copycat. But what they don't know is all the inner workings of what's really going on. And if you as a business are a consistent moving target moving forward, the other businesses are always just going to be playing catch up to what you're doing, right?
mm,
So as a business, if you're continuing to innovate and move forward, the best another business is going to be able to do is just copycat what you were already doing in the past, not knowing what's coming next and what you're working on.
mm. Got it. Got it. Great. So, moving to the next part, then, would you be able to share a compelling case study that highlights how a founder leveraged mastermind to achieve success and solve their key business challenge? And I would love to hear about the specific problem they faced and the steps taken to implement the solution through these mastermind workshops. And then there might be some kind of measurable outcomes you could share with our audience.
Yeah. So, if we look at where your business is going to go, right? Any of our businesses, there's only three directions it can go. All right. One is you pass it on to your kids. But like, let's be honest. Uh, do your kids want your business? Do you think it's going to last to that point? Do you think they'll run it the way you wanted it run? Like the reality is like multi-generational businesses, yes, they exist. It's exceedingly rare. It is rare businesses get passed on generationally these days. So unless you're the snowflake that, that's going to happen for you, we can probably cross that off the table, right? The second direction your business can go, and this is where most businesses go, is you just close up shop,
Mm,
right? You run the business until you run it into the ground and you say it's been a good run and you close the business. That's kind of sad, but the reality is most all businesses go there.
mm,
The third outcome your business can have is you sell it. You have an exit, right? So given those three directions, which way do you think you want to build your business? Do you want to build it to pass it on to your kids? Probably not. Do you want to build a business just to have something to do that you then close later on? Probably not. Or do you want to build it to sell? So once we have that mindset in place, we get to start making decisions around building a business to sell.
mm,
So that's one thing that a lot of our mastermind members actively work on is creating those systems. So you have a saleable business with systems, making the business less dependent upon you, right? So that means bringing on team members to execute those systems. And so a big thing we talk about a lot is, I have this term that I call entrepreneurial freedom. And the idea is that you create your business not so you have a job, but so you get this freedom that you create as an entrepreneur, the freedom to do what you want on your terms and how you want. That can be reinvested in the business. That can be, spending more time with your family, giving back in your community, traveling, pursuing a hobby, whatever, right? But it means you have the choice for how you spend that time, and the business supports that, okay? That, again, comes from process and people. So we had a member in our mastermind, and he had a business that was built around his physicality, right? He was physically at the job site every day. He was writing up estimates for customers and prospects. He was seeing his guys show up at the job site and do the work every day, signing them in each day, and was very present in the truck, going from job site to job site and so on, right? Great business, doubling year over year, doing really great, but it was very dependent upon him. So one day he's out of the job site talking to a customer, and he has one of those trailers with one of those Bobcat front loaders on the back. And someone yells out, and he looks up and sees this trailer rolling down the hill towards him. And he turns to see this just in time for the trailer to hit him, and not just knock him over and run him over, but drag his breaking body down the hill. Oof. So when he comes to out of surgery and everything else in the hospital, he's looking down at a broken body, right? Broken bones, blood loss. I mean, it was an ugly scene. None of us want to be in that situation, because here's a business built around his physicality, and he's now looking at it himself saying, well, I guess that's my business. If I can't be there, I'm out of business. Well, that's one direction you can go. But he took a very different direction. He said, well, what can I do to make the business less dependent on me physically? So one thing is he put technology in place. Instead of signing his guys in personally at the job site, he got an app where his guys could use their phones and check in. It would geotag them and timestamp them to be at a certain place at a certain time. Great. Then he wrote up his system on how to write up estimates, and he hired someone to go to the job sites and write up estimates. Great. He had a process and a person. So he's laid up in a hospital room, creating systems and hiring people remotely. Wow. And his business is continuing to not just maintain, but suddenly his business was growing. And he realized he hired a better salesperson than he was, right? His team was doing better work with him not there. And little did you know, or little did he realize, he was spending less time working in the business, and the business was making more profitability. So here's a good number for our listeners to look at, right? If you look at how much profitability comes out of the business, again, not paying you for the work you do, but the profitability. And then you look at the number of hours you're putting into your business. That ratio is a really important number to KPI. That lets you know your personal profitability from having this business. So let's do our math, right? You can change this ratio by adjusting your numerator or your denominator. You can either put less hours into the business and or increase the profitability coming out of the business. Change either or both of those numbers, and that ratio improves, right? So in his case, he was putting in less hours in the business, and the business was making more money. So this is a number that he still uses to this day to look at his personal profitability in a business. Okay, so fast forward, what do you know? He's got a business that's really profitable without him. And so he was able to move forward and actually exit and sell that business, and then did what many entrepreneurs dream of, or think they dream of, which is not needing to do anything, and bought an RV and traveled around with the family for a while, and finally realized that, like many of us entrepreneurs, we love business. So settled down somewhere else and, started up, investing in other businesses, wrote a book, launched some SaaS platforms, and has done a whole lot since then. But really built a business through process and people to a successful exit. And then, found himself as a serial entrepreneur with passive income generating businesses, as well as businesses he's invested in, and so on.
Perfect. That is really inspiring, especially when you go through that accident in your life, and then getting back and doing better than what you were doing before.
Right.
And most of the time I have heard this, like whenever you have like a very intense trigger in your life, that's when you come really out of your comfort zone and take very
Yeah.
sorry, it's like decisions which change your life.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you want one more quick story, I'll try and keep it brief
Yeah.
for you along those lines, but based on a different trigger, right?
Mm,
So for myself personally, when my wife and I were starting our family, we started telling people that, we were expecting our first kiddo, and I shared this news with my team. Now,
mm,
we talk about hiring people more experienced and wiser and all that than you are. I had done exactly that in my business. Not just professionally more experienced, but personally more experienced in life as well. And
mm,
so I shared the news that we were going to be having a baby, and a lot of my team, they all had kids of their own. So they were excited for me to be embarking on that stage of my life.
mm,
And after all the congratulatory things, my team said to me something really important. They asked, how much time I was taking off. And look, I'm an entrepreneur. We love our work, right? And I said, I don't know, like I'll take some time off, but I'll be around. I'll be online. My wiser team told me I should not do that. And they said, no, Jeremy, you need to take time off. You should take like 3 months off.
mm.
So I said, yeah, we can talk about that. And
Yeah.
they then gave me the list, and they said, here are the systems we need. Here are the hires we need. And here are the things that only you know that we need to know as well.
Mm,
And we then had a 6-month runway to put that in place. And that's a really reasonable amount of time to
mm,
system and people myself out of the business. And
mm.
so what happened is, when our daughter was born, I unplugged for 3 months. That means no email, no Slack, no text messages, none of those things.
Mm,
Right. And I was able to be fully present with my wife and daughter with no worries about the business and no thoughts around what needs to happen there. And you can never get that time in your life or your family's life back ever again.
yeah.
Right. And so fast forward 2.5 years later, when we had my son, we did the same thing, unplugged for a few months. And even just this past summer, now that our kids are older and all, we unplugged for 9 weeks, and we traveled around quite extensively. And it was really great not to think or worry about the business, because the people and systems are in place to run things, while we're able to just have really incredible family time around the world. So this is the kind of thing that you can do based on different triggers. For me, the
Yeah.
trigger was I'm going to be having, a kid, right?
Mm,
In the other story I shared with you, the trigger was I just got run over by a truck, right?
mm,
So some of these are intentional, and sometimes it's not planned. And so
mm.
my question for our listeners is, do you want to wait until life happens to you to create systems and hire people? Or do you want to be proactive and create the systems and hire the people to run those systems ahead of time?
Right now. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's really, really intense, but really, really fruitful, Jeremy. And
Yeah.
this is like, I think it's eye-opening advice which we have got from you today. I'm really enjoying this conversation, by the
Likewise.
way. Like I wish that we had like more time today, to go through more points. But listen, it was amazing. So let's jump into our quick fire round, which we have. It's quick six quick fire questions, and you can answer them as quickly as you can. You ready?
Love it.
Great. Okay, what are the top 3 strategies to generate leads in 2024?
So I'm seeing a lot more of be establishing yourself as an expert authority, right? This can be, books, podcasts, presentations, whatever it is, right? Content publishing. Establish your expert authority, but make sure you have a really clear call to action, or CTA, what folks should do, from there. As one. Something else, I often talk about, every business has, 3 legs to its stool. So there's 3 things you need, which is a product, a process to sell that thing, and an audience to sell that to, right?
Mm,
Any business can get by on just one of those, right? But
mm,
you really need all 3, either in your own business or externally. So in
mm,
terms of growing the business, or, generating more leads, right? You can really leverage affiliates. That's other people who have a list that you can sell your thing to. So we could do a whole episode on just that. But in terms
mm,
of lead gen, work with affiliates and partners to grow your business. And then the third, this sounds like an old strategy, but like it still really works, is direct mail. Most
mm,
folks are so excited about online that they forget you can grow even an online business using direct mail. it still does work. So, leverage that in your business.
Mm. Got it. Got it. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that because, there are still ways you can actually grow your business with direct mail. So I have seen that in
It
my
works.
experience. Great. What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
Oh my gosh. So we've always heard about core values. You should have core values, mission, vision, purpose, all this stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We get it. We know we should have it. And I would hear about this and read about it again and again and again. But I'm a tactical guy, right? I want to know, like, what's the next step? How can I move forward? And no one ever explained how to get from I want core values to I have them. That
Mm,
is until I came across Traction by Gino Wickman. Traction was like the first book that said, here are the questions to ask, here's the process to go through, and here's how to go from I want to have core values to I actually have them. We
mm.
can dig into that deeper, but that was a really great tactical book that answered that question.
Perfect. I'm going to add that into my list now. What's one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Execution, right? As entrepreneurs, we're visionaries. We have ideas. That's great. But with the best idea, if we came back and checked on you in a year and said, what's changed? And all you had was your idea, the truth is
Mhm.
nothing would have changed. The
Yeah,
difference is execute on your ideas as early as possible. Execute, execute, execute.
got it. What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
Well, this is what we've been talking about this whole time, right? And that is surround yourself with smart, like-minded, growth-focused individuals who are lifelong learners. That's really where you get those shortcuts and the lessons learned from others so you can be a better yourself and sharpen that sword continuously.
Perfect.
Mastermind, mastermind, mastermind.
Mastermind. Perfect. What's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had time?
So I'm passionate about, I love coffee. And I'll ride unreasonably long distances for really good craft coffee. And
Mhm.
I've long thought about the fun idea of having a coffee shop espresso bar on my cargo bike. So
Awesome.
riding to some really tough climb somewhere and being there for folks when they get to the top of a tough climb to have me and a big smile and a hot cup of coffee ready for them.
Awesome. Can I make a really quick suggestion?
Yeah.
If you ever travel back again to UK or London, try Costa.
Oh yeah.
I don't.
I know Costa.
Oh, you had it. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love it so much. If I get to go there every morning, I would definitely. But I buy them and make it at home, so it's
Yes.
fine. Last question: what's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
I think it's attached to the last one. I'm an avid cyclist,
Mhm.
and an avid, coffee enthusiast. So I ride quite a lot.
Mhm.
And I may not be the fastest or the strongest rider out there, but I am an endurance cyclist. I've raced competitively in endurance events, and I will ride unreasonably long distances for really good craft coffee and vegan pastries.
Don't tell me you have run into the Ironman marathon.
Ha, no, no, no. I do much longer, much more fun things than that.
Okay, good stuff. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your story and packing last few years of building the business and some up and down. If people want to get in touch with you, check out your website. What's the best way to do it?
Yeah, you can find all the things we've been talking about. All that's over at bayareamastermind.com. You'll find all of our guides on how to start a mastermind group, how to run hot seats, how to choose a mastermind group to join. You'll see our test drive application process there as well. And everything's over at bayareamastermind.com.
Awesome. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey and the impactful work you're doing. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders Podcast.
Thanks for having me on, for running a great show, and for taking the best doodle notes I've ever seen. Well done.
Cheers. Thank you all for tuning into this episode of Founders Podcast. I hope you found our conversation with Jeremy insightful and inspiring. Make sure to check out bayareamastermind.com and potentially join the mastermind club group, community. If you're a founder or industry expert interested in sharing your story on our podcast, please don't hesitate to contact me. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our podcast. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and keep building.